Greetings, YouTube. At one time, I was an active member of an organization known as the Society for Creative Anachronisms. It's a Renaissance group that reenacts the time period between 600 and 1600. Primarily European, but anywhere in the world is allowed. The group is international, centered mostly in the United States, but we have groups in Europe and Australia. And points in between, we've had active groups on aircraft carriers before with military personnel. The group in New Hampshire is known as the Barony of Stonemarch, and at one time I was an officer in that barony. I was the chatelaine. I essentially was the PR person for the state of New Hampshire. It was my job to meet new people, give meetings to help introduce people to the group, do demos for whoever wanted one. We frequently did them for schools, Boy Scouts, fairs, things like that. We'd show off arts and crafts, we'd show off fencing, heavy list fighting. And heavy list fighting for us is one of the big draws, I think. And heavy list fighting is people wearing real armor using fake swords. Essentially, you can do fighting two ways. You can have real weapons and have fake fighting, or you can have fake weapons and have real fighting. And the SCA chose the latter. Here in the East Kingdom, which compromises pretty much all of New England and New York, Pennsylvania, we're known as being very heavy hitters. The armor people wear is kind of heavy, usually like 10 or 12 gauge steel, and we use rattan swords, pole arms, things like that. Sometimes people make their armor out of plastic. The heavy blue barrels you sometimes see at car washes and such, they make good armor. It's fairly inexpensive, easy to work with hand tools, and if you put on a cotton tabard over it, you can't really tell the fact that it's not metal. But lots of people do get into it to the point where they invest in getting themselves some good metal armor. I've even seen some wonderful leather Criboli armor done in the Roman style. It was beautiful. And a couple of people who went a little further, a little earlier than some of us do, and wore Greek bronze, actual bronze chess pieces, which is quite appealing, especially if it's polished. But the SCA is a group, an organization, that really does encourage people to do some research, to learn about the history that took place in that time period. Everyone adopts a persona, and they try to live within that persona more or less to whatever extent the person who has the persona wants to. I was Lord James Edmund of Aberdew. I actually have a link to Wales, so I kind of made it a connection to the country that part of my family came from a very long time ago. All of my ancestors came from coal countries because my parents were raised in a coal town in Pennsylvania. And I really enjoyed being in the SCA. I mean, I literally knew someone that could pretty much do everything that you could think of by hand. Stained glass, working metal, weaving, sewing, baskets, woodworking, you name it, and I could find someone in a couple of minutes who did it either as a hobby or as a living. But over time, I got kind of burned out from being a PR guy for the entire state. And after 3.5 years as an officer, I left the office. I literally would find myself giving a speech and not remember where I had started in the speech. Had I started at the beginning, at the middle, or was I near the end? I'd just given the speech so many times that it had become rote memory. Which means I wasn't enjoying it much anymore, so I stopped. But in the time I was in the SCA, I earned 2 awards. One is known as the Award of Arms, which gave me the right to use the title Lord, and the second was the Order of the Millstone, which is an award specific to the Barony of Stonemarch for those that have served the barony and done unpleasant tasks, such as being an officer for more than 3 years. I still keep in touch with the group through a Yahoo mailing list, but I really haven't been active in years. I haven't even been to an event in probably 3 or 4 years now. There's one that takes place in my area every January, known as the Market Day at Birka, which is a reenactment of an actual market day that was conducted by Vikings, the Norse. And that's a great place to go shopping if you're in the mood to buy things that are period. And we actually get quite a few walk-ins, and the Chatelaines office has the job of making sure that they have costuming so they can walk around and blend in with those of us who are in garb. I'll put a couple of links in the sidebar that way, and to the SCA and to the Barony of Stone March. If you're interested in history, they're good organizations. It's a lot of fun. You can go to camping trips, day trips, or even longer trips, longer events. For example, the big one we have in August, known as Penzic, which takes place in Pennsylvania, which lasts anywhere between a week and 2 weeks. But if you're into history, the Society for Creative Anachronism can be a lot of fun.